Hi Cancer, welcome to your reading. This is the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. So as I said, this reading is for Cancer moon signs, or if you have significant Cancer placements in your chart and are needing a feminine energy to work with or balance within yourself. So Cancer, before your reading today, before I pulled the cards, I was getting sort of this energy of like a moat and a castle. I feel like you're in this energy, Cancer, because this is the bottom of the deck. We have this isolation card, and then we have the Hermit and the Six of Swords here. But if you just look at this, the imagery of these cards, like this is the moat here, right? It's like being surrounded by water, perhaps in this energy of isolation. So it kind of feels like to me that there's perhaps you're in sort of this energy of isolation with the Hermit, of like just seeking quiet or seeking sort of like this peaceful energy, perhaps separating yourself from a group or from like your regular circumstances or situation in order to get some clarity, right? And I feel like you are getting that in some way. Like you are reaching this sort of sense of clarity or peacefulness. It feels very peaceful and sort of content, because you have this confidence and protection at the bottom of the deck. But then you also have this happiness card, which was the first card out of this prism deck in your actual reading. So I feel like this is sort of the state that you're in. If you're not feeling this way, I was kind of also getting this energy of like, sometimes peace can be interpreted as being a bit boring, right? Because especially for you in our society, in our culture, we're so used to like being on the move or doing things or being really active or hustling and that kind of active energy. So you may be in this sort of peaceful state, meaning that there's not that much happening, or it's like being surrounded by water. It's coming through a lot with sort of like the sound is being dampened, or there's not a lot of noise. It's just feeling very silent and quiet and peaceful. That's what your energy is feeling like, because you're surrounded by like this moat, right? Like you're surrounded by water, or you've intentionally separated yourself from a group. And it's like, how I'm seeing this is kind of like there's somebody arriving is kind of what's coming through, right? I'm seeing this as like the drawbridge, like somebody who's crossing the bridge to arrive with some sort of like message or something like that, right? And it kind of looks like the universe is the one who's letting them in. The universe is like delivering some person or something to you, perhaps with a message of some sort, in order for, I don't know, for more clarity, or it's like they're giving you something to work with or something like that. It is kind of coming through though as being sort of like this like disruption. So it might be experienced as a disruption because you're in this sort of peaceful energy is kind of what's coming through here. And it may also be reminding you of a past event. I was also getting something like that as well, because the first two cards here in the tarot, you have here the Devil and the Four of Swords, which is all of this sort of like the moat, right? Being surrounded by water, or being surrounded by water. I feel like that's more of like a metaphorical thing, but it's more so just to me representing like it's silent, right? Like the sound doesn't pass through water as it does air, right? So it could be like there's a dampening of information, or perhaps maybe there's like a dampening of information. Another metaphor that I was getting was kind of like if you're listening to the radio, for example, in your car, and then you pass through a tunnel, the tunnel sort of dampens the connection, right? The signal. And so there's something here about like you're in a state, it's almost like you're moving through a tunnel, or there's a dampening of information or whatever connection. There's a sense of being isolated, but within that isolation, there is actually a lot of something that you're meant to understand here. It's feeling like this is, because the first card you have here in the archetypes deck is this Kairos card, which talks about time. It feels like this state that you're in of peace is perhaps actually reminding you of a past energy with this Kairos. Because this Kairos card was actually feeling like a past tower moment is how it was coming through. Like perhaps there was like a past tower moment. Or it's reminding you of a situation from your past that perhaps did not end well, or that you had to like fight your way out of, is how it's coming through. Or that you needed like escape from. It's like you needed to get out of whatever this devil energy was. It's almost like this was the past tower moment, and it's like you needed escape or refuge, right, from whatever that fiery situation is. And it's like this isolation period that you're in might actually be reminding you of a past energy that felt similar to this, right? And from within this isolation stage, it's almost like you're dreaming a new dream is kind of how it's feeling, or being reminded of a past dream that perhaps you I don't want to say gave up on, but maybe just like put aside, right? Like a past dream that you've put aside. But it's like now that sort of like all of the noise is gone, it's like you're in this sort of silence, isolation kind of state. It's like this dream is being reactivated is what this is feeling like. And then there's this one figure. I feel like you're not aware of this person yet. It's like they're perhaps around you, right? It's like they're on the other side of the moat, but you're not letting them in or whatever, or you're just not noticing them, or you're not aware of their presence. Because you're in this state. It's really fascinating. The next card out you have here is the Empress, which is so incredible to me because I'm feeling this as being sort of like the past energy, right? This is like the dream being reawakened. The dream being reawakened, and this is you in this Empress energy. So there is kind of like this retrograde energy coming through because we are currently in a Venus retrograde energy, which is really interesting because it has to do with sort of like the divine feminine and again something about like perhaps an aspect of self even that's being reawakened with this Empress. But I feel like this is showing me sort of the past energy of like where you were before, where now it's looking like this figure coming up out of the water, right? It's like this aspect of self perhaps is coming up out of the water, and I feel like it's revealing all of this really interesting aspects of self or gifts or wholeness is what I see with this Empress card. And for you, Cancer, it might also be because this is also showing me sort of like a progression of like, this is you in the past. So it feels like there was perhaps a tower moment in the past where something that you were trying to build perhaps ended in failure or ended in a way that you didn't expect or something like that, right? It ended badly or something. But it's like in this period of isolation, it's almost like you're being reminded of that dream or that thing that you were trying to build or whatever, that situation or something like that. And it's like it's being reawakened, meaning like you're feeling the desire to pursue that thing again or work towards that thing or whatever. Reestablish that dream of yours or work towards it again because of this sort of retrograde or like things coming back or something like that. And it feels like you are already in it is what this is feeling like to me. You're already in that new dream. It's like you've already started it, or at least taken perhaps a step towards it or something. And what these two cards together are showing me is that you are much different now with this Empress. It's like you, from this place where it's kind of like trying to keep your head above water, into this place where it's become you in some way, or you have become the whole, or the fully realized person or energy that you need to be in order to make this successful and grow. Because it could be that the first time that you encountered this dream, it failed perhaps because you weren't quite ready for it, or there was like more development needed. But now you are in this place with this Empress of having all of the skills, or being fully realized, so that you can be successful at whatever this new dream is. That's what this is feeling like to me, which is really incredible. And it feels incredibly, like, again, with this sort of confidence and protection, that it feels like kind of, maybe like you're not feeling this way is kind of how this is feeling. Maybe you're not feeling quite confident about your current energy right now with the Empress, because you do have here like the warrior and the shaman card coming out next, which to me is talking about, the shaman to me always talks about retrieving sort of like something that was lost, right? Like becoming whole by retrieving lost aspects of self, it could be. With this Hierophant card coming out next, because it could be that, like, how I'm seeing your energy, Cancer, is that you have become fully realized in making some sort of dream of yours possible. But there may be this sort of like looking back at a past Tower moment, or the last time you tried this, it didn't work, or it ended in failure, or something like that. And perhaps that left sort of like, perhaps a wounding. It doesn't have to be that severe of a word, but it's kind of just like, maybe like feeling like you failed, right? That could leave sort of a negative impression on the overall situation. It's like, oh, the last time I tried that, it failed. It didn't work. And there's kind of like this feeling of like, that might be messing with your confidence a little bit, because it's kind of like the last time you were in this space, or the last time you tried to work toward your dream, it didn't pan out the way that you wanted, is kind of how it's feeling to me. But so I feel like this energy is coming in to remind you that, first of all, failure is part of the journey, right? It's like you rarely do things work out perfectly the very first time, right? That's what this is talking about. It could even be that it's like maybe there was an outside influence that prevented you from succeeding. I don't know where that's coming from. But anyways, it kind of feels like whatever this experience was, you grew from it. You are now this Empress, is kind of how this is looking to me, right? It's like the okay, hold on. Sorry. So there's, with these two cards here, you have the vow and the seed. And so what I was getting with this seed energy, like this is to me feeling like the dream, right? This is feeling like the thing that you're wanting to grow. It feels like in the past energy, right? The last time this, perhaps you tried to do this and it failed, it feels like this was not the right environment for this seed to grow, right? Because seeds need a certain set of conditions in order to flourish. So whatever that past energy was, the conditions were not right, is what's coming through here. The conditions were not right for whatever that situation was. So it could have been there was like an outside influence or something in the environment that was not beneficial. And it's like, even if this new thing is coming around, right? It's like a new opportunity or something like that, a new situation that is coming back around, meaning it's not quite new, it's a recycling, or it's a return of something. You have here the Vow card and this Empress, which is telling me that there's perhaps like now the conditions are right, is what this is feeling like. The conditions of this new growth are the right conditions for whatever this new thing is to grow. If that makes sense. The conditions are now right. And with this Vow card, it could be that there's perhaps assistance coming your way. Or this is just feeling like a renewal of commitment to whatever this task is, or this project or situation. It's a renewal of commitment. And it could be that there's somebody here assisting you in this process. Like, that might be the condition that you needed in order to make this grow. It's like you are the Empress, and it could be that there was so perhaps a partnership, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could even just be sort of like with the Shaman card, a return to like a soul retrieval aspect, right? Like you're retrieving some aspect of your soul or yourself, or an aspect of self that was needed in order for the conditions to be met. Okay, so but what's coming out next, which is so interesting to me. So first of all, the Three of Inspiration, which to me is talking about like ready, set, go. Like, this is sort of the start of it. The dominoes are falling into place. Which is really interesting because you also have here the Death card. So, like, now these dominoes are looking to me like tombstones. Oh, that's interesting. But the Death card to me talks about like a transition, right? Like, you are moving forward. It's like perhaps there was this sort of like pause or timeout kind of energy in this Four of Swords. A pause or timeout in order to retrieve this soul aspect or whatever, like retrieve something, or look back to the past, or integrate some sort of wisdom from your last experience, or whatever this is. But it feels like that's now moving forward. It's like you've retrieved something from your past, some wisdom, some understanding, some clarity from that past energy, and now it's like you're moving forward. Okay, you also have here the Eight of Inspiration and the Page of Inspiration, which I love so much because, again, it's looking to me like this is you in this sort of Page of Inspiration, right? It's like you're reconnecting to an aspect of creativity and joy is what this card talks to me about. But also, especially because we were talking about failure, this card to me is a very creating from joy, right? Not being afraid of failure. Like, it's almost like even welcoming the mistakes. This is sort of it's a really playful and almost childlike kind of energy of just doing and trying, and like a trial and error, but being very joyful about it. And so I feel like this is the state that you're in, or that you will be in soon, if you're not quite there yet, because it feels like you're almost like so busy doing this that you don't notice this Eight of Inspiration character, whoever they are. Again, it feels like there's somebody coming into your experience. It's like they're almost like getting past your defenses. Though it doesn't feel like a defense. It's not feeling like a defensiveness. It's feeling like you've perhaps just removed yourself from a situation in order to get clarity, or in order to take time to experiment with what this is. But it's almost like there's somebody who's coming into your experience almost as a disruption. because you have here the intuition and the disruption card, right? So these two energies are very clearly the same. There's something coming in to that might feel like a disruption to your process, is kind of how this is feeling. There may be a disruption to your process. I feel like you may be already aware of this intuitively because you have the intuition card. And I was really just drawn to sort of these cats here, which are of course very intuitive animals. Like it's almost like something like if you've seen those videos where like cats can sort of sense earthquakes before they happen, it's something like that. You may have already been getting intuitive hits about whatever this energy is. It might not even be a person, right? It might be just an energy or an event. There may be some sort of event on the horizon that's going to disrupt your process, is kind of how it's feeling. And you may have already been getting intuition, like intuitive hits about what that is. And it's coming through as perhaps a bit of a challenge here, because you have the Muse of Inspiration and the Four of Wands. So the Four of Wands was next to this Page of Inspiration. So much peace. There's so much peace in your energy, right? There's all of this sort of like just being in the flow state of creating whatever it is that you're creating. And then there's this sort of like the Muse of Inspiration talks to me about like some sort of challenge. Because of this Warrior card, I was getting sort of like yoga poses, like the peaceful warrior, which I feel like you're in, which is kind of like, if you were familiar with yoga poses, the peaceful warrior is this sort of like very stable, but requires sort of like a surrendering, like it's almost like a backward oriented pose, versus this one with the Muse of Inspiration looks to me like the humble warrior pose in yoga, which is more forward facing, right? So it's almost like perhaps you were in this sort of like relaxing state into something that's more active or something like that. So it feels like the way in which this is disrupting your peace is that it's whatever this disruption event is, it's propelling you into action. So it could be that there's some sort of message or information or downloads coming in that are propelling you into action, is kind of how this is feeling. Because, and I want to say it has to do with whatever this dream is, right? It's like the conditions are now right. The seed is emerging from the dormancy, right? The dormancy is that sort of peace. There's no movement. There's no growth. It's just peaceful. There's a dormancy, versus this this Muse of Inspiration, which is a lot of forward momentum, a lot of growth, a lot of change, all of that. And what I love about this card here, the Eight of Inspiration, it's a very fast moving energy, but I love that there's snails here at the top. I have no idea what that's about, but it's kind of talking about, I feel like it has something to do with the perception of time. And like, you know how when you're having fun, time seems to go really fast. When you're bored or when you're peaceful or when there's not that much happening, time moves. It feels like time moves very slowly, right? So there's kind of like, perhaps that might be the shift where if you've been feeling like time has been moving very slowly or things have been moving very slowly, it's like it's flipping. It's changing into a situation or a feeling of like time moves very fast because there's a lot of things for you to work on or to focus on or to move through or experience, that the experience of time is much faster. That's what this is talking to me about. Okay, and then finally the last three cards here. You have here the Six of Emotions and then the Queen of Pentacles. So this to me is talking about your past energy with the Six of Emotions. So it could be that you're feeling nostalgic about a past situation. Again, like looking back on a past tower moment. It doesn't have to be a tower moment, but it's just like a past situation that perhaps didn't end in the way that you wanted. and perhaps feeling nostalgic about that. But the shift is like now you are in this Queen of Materials energy, because these are very similar energies to me always. It's like whatever it is you're building, right? There's also, with the Queen of Materials, a sense of pride in what you're creating. So it could be something like that. Like, it could be like, again, what it is that you may need to retrieve or to reframe or to reintegrate into your experience might be how you are perceiving this past energy. Because to me, how this is looking is like you're looking back on something that you did in the past that you tried maybe and didn't work. But it's perhaps leaving a bad taste in your mouth, right? Like there's a negative perception about it, or nostalgic or sad or melancholy sort of framing of what that situation was, like that ended in failure. And so instead of sort of looking back on that past experience as being like a failure, there's a way to reframe it so that you can be proud of your accomplishments or what it is that you accomplished, or like you built something, you tried something, you learned something about that situation. And I feel like that shift is going to be really important in this next phase of moving forward, because you don't want sort of the failure or the negative aspect or the melancholy aspect to be what it is that you're bringing into the future, right? You want to focus on sort of like building and creation, and learning new things requires mistakes. That's how you learn. Actually, like, mistakes and failures are the best and most, not the best. It's not the best. It's just one way in which we learn, right? Positive reinforcement's also a way in which we learn. Actually, that one is the most effective. Positive reinforcement is the most effective, but maybe you're focused on sort of the negative or the punishment, so to speak, or the negative reinforcement that happened here. And so I feel like there's a shift, or perhaps what this energy is that's coming in, this disruptive energy that perhaps spirit is, or the universe is trying to bring to you, is to remind you of the positives that came out of the situation. Because with the Wheel of Fortune coming out next, it's like that's how the wheel turns, right? It's like learning from all of these experiences and integrating them into the journey. Okay, Cancer, I'm going to end it there. If you check the description box below, you'll find the extended video. You'll also find a link to my website if you're interested in a personal reading. If this message resonated with you, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.